everyone to our webinar, What's New in Laser AI Spring Release, Recent Developments and Roadmap for 2023. So using this opportunity, I would like to share the latest news with you. Last week, Evidence Prime has received ISO 27001 certification. We are very glad to achieve this status, as this shows our commitment to implementing the highest standards of information security and data protection for our clients, partners, and employees. In the chat, we will provide you with a link to the press release so you can read more about our journey. Furthermore, we also are active on the LinkedIn group, AI in Evidence-Based Healthcare, where we share weekly Tech Tuesdays, where machine learning experts explain new relevant papers without technical jargon, and Friday Journal Club, where we share new research in evidence synthesis methods. We are almost 300 people in the group, and we also invite all of you to join and to share information related to AI in evidence-based healthcare. So today we have 3 points on our agenda. First, take control of your team workflow, elastic user roles in Laser AI. Then make the most of the new export options. And at the end, we will give an overview of Laser AI's roadmap for 2023. Our first speaker, Kuba Kulesza, is a product design manager in Laser AI team. His domain of expertise is human-computer interaction and user experience. Our second speaker, Iga Czyż, is a product designer at the Laser team, where she tries to make the world of systematic reviews a little more user-friendly. Iga has a background in pharmacy and design. And finally, Artur Nowak, co-founder and CTO of Evidence Prime, will give us a peek into the development roadmap for 2023 in Laser AI. Thank you a lot, and I will give the floor to Kuba.
Thank you, Claudia. So, welcome everyone. I'm going to share my screen right now to give you some insights and ideas and remarks about the new feature that we are going to release in upcoming release, that is spring release, which is related to the elastic user roles, as we called them. Plan of this short presentation present as well. The first, I would like to explain what exactly are the user roles and why they are so important for the digital platform. Then I will present what is the concept of elastic user roles that we introduce at Laser AI, and how they are divided into the organization user roles and project user roles. And I believe that step by step we get much more deep into this area, into this idea, and be more aware how it works and what we can do with the elastic user roles in your organizations. So let's start from the concept of user roles, because we spent some time working on them, and everyone who has asked us what we were working on and why we spent some time on something so obvious as a user roles, no one exactly knows and feels how complex it is, but also how fundamental and important it is for the digital platform that we use on a daily basis at our work. So basically, user roles determine what user can do in the system, what actions can be performed, where users have access, what they can see, what they can do, and in which context. Managing user roles gives managers a huge control on the whole workflow of the team, and helps them to align the existing user roles into the processes that are currently applied in the organizations. But what is also important user roles very often determines how users can interact with each other. And especially in the context of systematic reviews, this is really important because in the case of, for example, double screening, where we work on the same material, this interaction is crucial for the results of our work. So also here, something like user roles have a huge impact on the way how user behaves, how user can interact with other user, but also how the manager has got a control on the whole workflow. So just to grasp the idea of what the user roles are in the context of digital platform, I prepared a set of basic screens that I believe it's quite familiar and also present in almost every systematic review software. And on this basic example, I would like to show you how the user roles may be used in the practical context. So here we've got a screening metrics and results, which may be perceived as a dashboard of the whole process, a list of tasks, so the list of references that have to be reviewed, decision screen, so the particular screen where a user makes his or her decision on the reference, if it is included or excluded from the set of the references. Inclusion and exclusion criteria, which were defined before the whole screening starts, the team, because usually we do not work alone. To perform the proper systematic review, there should be a team, and we are part of a team. And also the list of references that comes to the project, and we browse through them. Based on inclusion and exclusion criteria, we made some decisions and push the whole review further. So let's take a perspective of the manager. And as we can assume, the manager has an access to the screening metrics and results because she needs to know what is going on in the whole process. She has also get access to the list of references that were uploaded to the project. She is also responsible for managing, but also inviting the people to the team. She is also responsible for setting up the inclusion and exclusion criteria. In the context of digital software, this is the moment when the protocol is written, when everything is clear. Right now, we need to somehow put it into the digital platform. She has got an overview of tasks of a particular users, but she cannot edit them. She is not responsible for making decisions for a user. She only can know what the decision was made and how it can be, how this decision has an impact on the rest of the team and the whole process. And also she doesn't have access to the decision screen, which is a screen dedicated for our researchers. And here Bernard, the researcher, comes into the action. And for highlighting the main difference, in the contrast of Anne, the manager, Bernard has got an access to the decision screen, which is the main screen that he uses at daily basis when he performs his work. He can modify tasks by assigning the proper decision to the reference that he is screening. He has got overview of the team to know who is his colleague in the whole process. And he, of course, Bernard can take a look into the inclusion and exclusion criteria to know what kind of a decision, what are the criteria that he needs to fulfill when he makes a decision on the decision screen. So when we look at this schema, we see that we are operating in the same environment. We've got various screens with various functionalities that helps us to perform the systematic reviews. but with our different users, we've got a different access to them, and various users can perform different actions on them based on user roles that were assigned to them. And from the general perspective, it looks quite easy, but in the case when we've got really advanced process that is that supports living systematic reviews and also process that is supported by artificial intelligence algorithms. And we are talking here about some kind of a semi-automatization of work of our users. We need to have a more granular control on what users can or cannot do in the system. So as you can see on this schema, customizable permissions, or something what we call an elastic user interface, elastic user roles, is a fundament for the whole process. Is also one of the most crucial items of the project management. As a project manager, I can take a full control on the whole process of living systematic review and decide who has access to what and when. On the previous screens, I just show a basic set of screens, but here, based on the schema, we can assume that every functionality listed and provided by Laser AI is a matter of giving an access to is a matter of allowing other users use them or not in the context of the whole flow. So what is the background? Why we decided to design and spend a long time on working on elastic user roles, which is which were built upon our experience with working with other organizations. And when we when we took a look on a processes that were developed in various organizations, we see that they're slightly different, and we see that in various organizations we've got different roles and different needs. That was our first point. We cannot build a solid, strict, fixed system, because then we won't support every organization and their need. And usually those needs were arisen from the particular domain that organization is working on, because on the one hand, we support scientific communities, some small university groups that are developing their own projects. On the other hand, we've got a huge HTA agencies with totally different needs, with totally different approach to the process. The second point, which is also quite important for us, are the contemporary advancements and development of AI. And this is something that I'm pretty sure we are all aware of. We see how from day to day, the new developments are coming to the light, and we see and we have became aware how they can change not only our workflows, but also our approach to work. So we decided to take a look into the elastic user interface to be ready to change the role if it is a need for that, if there's a need to change a process, if there's a need to support the process technologically in other manner. Also the user roles, and as I said before, something which is what is fundamental for the digital platform, should align as well. And the third part is the methodology, because user roles, managing user roles, gives us access, gives us control on what other people can do in the software, in the system, and especially when we are talking about screening, for example, and when we are thinking about blinding. Here is this part that I mentioned before, when we, by defining user roles, we also define the type of interaction that can be taken by our users. So having those three pillars in our heads, we wanted to create flexible, something what will adjust and will align to every type of organization, the model of user roles that will adapt to every type of organization, to the various processes in various organizations. Something what is scalable, something what is easy responsive for the upcoming developments in AI, something that can surprise us in the upcoming year, something which is, because as I said, user roles is a fundamental part of the system. It should be easy scalable, should be easy adaptive. It should easy adjust and adapt itself to the new technological environment that our users are going to work in. And especially the new user roles model, elastic user roles, should be helpful to our managers to keep a control and keep the whole process of performing a screening flawless and strict in the context of the methodology. So here we come to the elastic user roles, a huge feature that is fundamental for the Laser AI and upcoming features that will be built upon this one. So the first of all, the elastic user roles are customized. It means that we can change anytime when it is needed, especially when the needs of our user will change. Also, the user roles that are currently occupied by them may change as well. They are flexible and scalable. I mean, right now we start with some set of basic attributes assigned to the user roles, but they can be adjusted, that can be changed in the future together with the change in the organization, change in the new processes that we want to introduce in our organizations, and also with evolving needs of our users that will gain a new experience and may have need to perform other types of action that they do before. And what is also important, elastic user roles allow administrators, managers to have a full access, have a full control on what user can see and where, to have a full control how the resources of the organizations here, I mean, here I may have got in my mind, for example, PDF files, a list of references, controlled vocabularies, how all of them are shared among the various types of users in the organizations, regardless of the size of the organization. So those are the three assumptions that were used when we were building the elastic user roles model. And to fulfill them, we made a initial distinction between the organization user roles and the project user roles. And this little manner helped us to develop elastic user roles as we called them. Usually, when we use various types of software, we very often meet a situation when there is only one level of user roles that it's general for the whole application. But here at Laser AI, we've decided to make a distinction between organization user roles and the project user roles. What is important and also what is illustrated by this little schema in the right side of this slide, organization user roles are assigned to everyone who is a member of our organization. Project user roles are only assigned to the people who are involved in the projects. So few words about the organization user roles. And this is something what I already have mentioned, that everyone who is involved in organization that is using Laser AI, and the organization is the basic entity that we build all functionalities around in the Laser AI, every user is a member of organization. But we define two main roles on organization level. Those are the organization administrator, is a person who can do everything and is responsible for managing all the assets and also managing all other people, other users in the organization, and also an organization member who is usually a person who is mostly involved in the projects. Here I mean mostly researchers and other types of roles that I'm going to describe in a few moments. But beside that, and based on our experience and based on our work with the other organizations, we also defined two subtypes, which are the library manager and data manager. Those are, I can say those are roles that are supportive for the organization administrator. Because where we take a list of the main actions that can be performed on our organization level, we can see, and this is something what I have already mentioned, that organization manager has access to every feature, every module in the organization. But sometimes there are some kind of areas that requires more expertise. Here in the context, for example, of controlled vocabularies or templates management, we were thinking to introduce data manager, a person who is fluent with working with a various set of data, with a semantics of data, with a various ontologies, and is responsible to build a standards for the organization. On the other hand, we also consider to introduce a library manager, a person who is responsible for providing the PDFs to the organization. Again, this is a supportive role for the organization manager, but it is also crucial, and as we identified in many processes, it is also a required role that should has its own place in the system. But those were the organization roles, and as I have mentioned before, we made a distinction between organization roles and project roles. And what is important, and here this little tweak appeared, that every user that has assigned organization role can have a different project role assigned to him or her regarding the project that he or she is involved. And here we try to build a separate areas that user can work on. So regardless if I am a organization manager or a data manager, I can have a various role in one of the projects that I'm involved in. I believe that this little schema may explain it in more details. So again, we meet our colleague Anne, who is the organization admin. We've got Bernard, who has got a role of our organization member. But in the project, the natural configuration would be that the Anne is also a project manager and the Bernard becomes a researcher. But our approach to the organization roles, to the Elastic user roles, allows to make Anne a researcher in a case when the Bernard becomes a project manager. And this allows us to show the proper sets of data, proper set of functionalities to both of those users to help them fulfill their tasks that they've got. What is also important, was also shown on this screen, is that I can have various roles in the various projects because I can be involved in the multiple projects in the organization. I can have different roles in any of them. Regarding the roles itself, For the start, we identified 5 of them. But as I said in one of the slides before, the whole model was scalable, and we are ready to extend this list according to the needs that may appear in the future. That we start from a project manager who is responsible for managing the whole process of systematic review and data extraction in the particular project. There is a role of a senior researcher, a person who leads the whole process of screening. Very often, this is a person who is also responsible for taking the proper conflict resolution strategy. We've got a researcher, which are the really experienced user that are familiar with their domain of knowledge. They can focus on their work. They receive tasks, and the rest of the system is hidden from them just to not disturb them. We've got also a librarian. It's a person who is responsible for providing a particular set of references and PDFs to the project, and also a visitor who has got mostly the read-only access to the project if you want to share the results with someone else from the organization. So behind this complex model, an advanced model, we built a quite simple interface, which is our main role, to try to make complex things easy for our users. So we are not only allowed to assign various project roles to various users in different projects, but also on an organization level as an administrator, I've got an access to defining what exactly every role is capable of in the context of a project. So here we prepared a set of default attributes that can be adjusted to the particular organization needs. That helps managers to align the roles to the process that is currently applied in the organization. So as I said, the Elastic User roles were built around the process of the living systematic reviews that we are supporting in the Laser AI software. And here, when we look at all of those features, all of those modules, they were split into the minor actions that right now can be characterized and assigned to a particular role. So, for example, I can decide, and this is a case that it's taken from real world. We met this when we were working with a various organization. The case of uploading PDFs into the system. In one organization, this is something what is handled by the dedicated role by of the librarian. But in the other organization, researchers are responsible for providing PDFs to the system. Again, when we are thinking about managing control vocabularies, in one organizations, here, one of the organizations, there are dedicated role to manage and taking care of the control vocabularies. In the other organization, the organization administrator was responsible for managing the controlled vocabularies. And when we take a look at all of those functionalities and features, all of them can be splitted into the minor actions, and the minor actions can be assigned to a particular role. So what exactly the Elastic User Roles gives us? So as I mentioned it very often during this short presentation, Elastic User Roles helps us to maintain the alignment and optimize workflows. We can start from a set of defined user roles and see how they are working in our organization. But if we want to perform some kind of experiment, if we want to give some more rights or access to our various data to other users, we can do this. We can see how they will behave, how their results will come when the process is done. What is also important is that when we are familiar with our coworkers, when we are familiar with our colleagues, what are their duties, what are their possibilities, what are they what they can do and what they are good in doing. What are the main area of expertise? We can tailor the role to their need, and in such a way try to help them to make their work better. And also what I also highlight in one of our steps, we are open for new challenges. We are open for the new developments in the technological world, especially in the area of AI. And here our model can help to and here our model is ready to build new attributes, to build new roles with to the new features or the new advancements that will arrive in the future, and it helps us to make the organization more flexible, and helps the organization to adapt to new changes, then especially the technological development that is ahead of us. So I hope that this overview gives you a main intuition what the Elastic user roles are and how they can be used and utilized in your organization. If you got any additional questions or if you are interested in details, I encourage you to book a demo for the Laser AI, where we can show you how they can be changed, how they can be managed from the administrator point of view. Here now you can think about your organization, processes that are applied in your organization right now, and now you can think about obstacles that you've got right now when you are working with any digital software. So you can consider how the roles may change, how they may have impact on the whole workflow for your organization. If you've got any additional questions, please ask them now during this webinar session, or you can always send us an email or share our thoughts via other mediums. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Kuba. This was an amazing presentation. We don't have any questions yet, but we got a comment. Not a question, just wanted to say, I love the user roles, great concepts, granularity, and application. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and as Kuba said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask at any time of the presentations. And to Iga, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Of course, I need a second to share my screen. Okay, should be good now. Great, thank you. So I will continue to show you another features that we recently developed in Laser, and what is exactly the export options and how we can use it in a tool and how we can make the most of them. And this is relatively small feature, but it was quite often requested by our users, and it provides a great deal of flexibility. And perhaps, as you already noticed from the Kuba's presentation, this is something that we always keep in mind when designing new features for Laser. And the good news is that's my only slide, and we are going to jump to the tool right away. And I'm going to show you some example projects that I have prepared for you. And this is a project, how we can see it right after entering. And the easiest and the quickest way to export is, of course, from the main dashboard. As previously, we can hit the export button and generate new package. As you can see here, we can also download packages that were previously generated. It started to make more sense once we are conducting, for example, living systematic reviews, and we can use it as a kind of version control, sorry. Okay, so what to do if we need a little bit more customized export? And to do this, we have to go to the reference page. And before we apply any filter, I can still export from here all the references as previously. But once I apply that, I would like to see only inclusion records. The number of the records will adjust also here. In this project, we already completed a screening. So we are already done the title and abstract and the full text screening. And before jumping to the data extraction, I would like to make sure that we haven't missed any important record. And so, for example, maybe we can do a backward citation analysis and check maybe there are some records that haven't been indexed in databases. So, of course, we can export all the inclusions from the full text screening and export it in the chosen format as previously. But also, I have asked my screeners to assign a specific tag or a structured comment during the screening each time they encounter a systematic review. So we have already quite a lot of them. And in the second step, I have also asked them to give it to the records that are not older than 6 years old. So as you can see, we have some mistakes here. And what I can do now, this export option here is not longer that useful, but I can use another option. I'm going to select all the systematic reviews here and simply deselect those which are no longer very important for me. Of course, I can use another attribute here by year. Both ways are acceptable, and click the export reference button. Okay. So as you already saw, we already have an option to export in the format CSV. And I have prepared another project for you. You can roll in this section and go to the evidence mapping. In this project, we have used another nice feature of Laser, which is a possibility to give more than one inclusion reason. So in this case, we have 3 of them, which are creating us a kind of groups. And then it's much easier to work with our results. And in this case, we have one E1, inclusion 1, for clinical effectiveness. The second is for the cost effectiveness, and the third for ETD outcomes. In the second step, I have asked my screeners also to assign a relevant structured comment. So here you can see we've got a bunch of cost-related tags, and the rest is for the E1 or E3, as you can expect. Of course, in Laser, we can easily check how many we have records which are tagged with these inclusion reason or a structured comment. So I can verify easily if everything was prepared correctly and see the number in each group. But it's no longer very useful when we are going to share the information with others. Or, for example, I would like to make some more advanced action like preparing a graph. and share it with a stakeholder. So what I can do now is, of course, to select all the included records, because these are the most interesting for us right now, and export them using one or another option of export, and generate new export package. Here, as you can see, we have also a controlled number to make sure that we are exporting exactly what we want. If you already worked with a CSV file, you know that it's sometimes it may need a little help to display the content correctly. And in case of the CSV export from the laser, we don't have to do anything when we are uploading a file to the, for example, Google Spreadsheets. But in case of Excel, we have to add an information, what is the separator. And in case of our export file, the separator is a comma. So here I've got a table where I already defined that information. And as you can see, we have here already columns with a bunch of data. We export the same amount of information as we do in the case of RIS format. And well, the beauty starts when we are trying to work with them and show it in another format. So here I already started to present the results in the form of a graph, and I may share with stakeholders or whoever who don't have a who doesn't have an account in the laser, and well, and share it during the presentation like today. So that's all from my side. It's pretty quickly, but if you have any further question and would like to know anything else about that, please let us know. We'll be glad to answer. Thank you, and back to Claudia.
Thank you, Iga, for showing the insights of the tool. Yeah, maybe before there is one question in the chat we could answer before the next presentation. Does Laser AI use ChatGPT technology? If not, do we anticipate any changes to Laser AI with incorporation of ChatGPT in the future?
Yes, so maybe I can kind of answer this question already, since it's my turn to present now. So we are incorporating some models based on the models provided by OpenAI, but we are not using ChatGPT models or GPT 3.5 Turbo in the production code. Mostly because basically everything you send to ChatGPT is like talking to a stranger. The license for using ChatGPT is stating explicitly that they can review the data that you submit there, and that they may be verified by some human annotators. So for this reason, it's kind of not compatible with the security and compliance stature that we have, and that we also shared to use these models directly. Instead, we use our own models that are very similar to ChatGPT, or we are using the AI version, AI endpoints provided by Microsoft Azure that are, let's say, the same models, but in a secure environment.
Thank you, Artur. So as you said, you could follow to your presentation, and we encourage everyone to ask more questions.
Okay, so I will share my screen. Okay, so I'm closing with a sneak peek at our roadmap for the next quarter, and here's my title slide, which probably it could be my last one if it was only about the points that we have on the roadmap. But I also wanted to dive a little bit deeper in this first point here, which is the extraction models at the screening stage, to share with you some work that we did in this area, and also to provide context what we plan to do here. So just to set the stage, the project that I will be presenting is the systematic review that we help with. This systematic review is used to develop guidelines by American Society of Hematology on the use of anticoagulation in patients hospitalized with COVID-19. And the particular review that we work on is establishing the baseline risk of VTE in patients hospitalized with COVID. So as you can see from this picture here, it's a living guideline, and therefore it's also a living systematic review, which makes it very interesting also from the methods and machine learning perspective. So, so this review has a huge number of references to consider. We started with around 15,000, and now we are seeing more than 15,000 every month. So this takes us to almost 440,000 results, search results, in January 2023. After applying our automatic data application that is also coming to the tool next quarter, we went down to merely 150,000 references. So one can ask how to screen 150,000 references. So it's probably in some teams perhaps have the capacity to screen so many references, but I doubt that many of them are able to kind of cope with the number of references that appear every month. So in the previous updates, the team at McMaster that we are teaming up with screened top 5,000 references as prioritized by the machine learning model. So as some of you may know, we have a model in Laser that takes the decisions from the screeners and create a ranking. So the most interesting references are shown first. So in this situation of having really too many references to screen, the team relied on this ranking to look for the 5,000 most relevant references. We also have a validation study that I hope will turn into a paper where we look what happens beyond this top 5,000. So I hope that we will be able also to share the results of this very shortly. For this most recent update, however, taking into account that the COVID situation has now changed, that we are mostly interested in studies that could possibly change our current estimation of the baseline risk. The team was interested in taking a little bit more pragmatic approach and screening just 2,000 references, prioritizing the ones that are large, so that have more than 500 patients, and especially if they are also prospective studies. So, so this is a very interesting case also from the automation perspective, because as I said, the model that is now implemented in Laser is learning from previous decisions of the screeners. So now if we change the inclusion criteria, all these previous decisions are to a large degree useless, because the new criteria translates to different set of included and excluded references. To tackle this problem, our team built machine learning models to automatically extract study design, sample size, and any mentions of prognostic factors from the abstract. The practical application of this that is coming in the next quarter is that we will implement these models into Laser, so they are run once you import references into the tool, and they will be available as filters in the references view, the exact same screen that Iga was showing during her presentation. So this is by no means a trivial task. So just to give you a couple of examples why this is not so obvious. So to start with the study design, when we are only using the abstract, it's very difficult to accurately determine the study design. So for this reason, we stuck with just 6 broad categories. We have RCTs, non-RCTs, systematic reviews, guidelines, economic evaluations, and everything that doesn't fall into these 5 categories. And one may ask why we have such a broad category for non-RCTs. And the reason is that it's really difficult to get all this information from the abstract alone. So after doing some research in this area, what we decided to do is that our model not only tries to assign a class, so not only predicts the study design, but also extracts the author-reported study design in verbatim. And then we can use these quotes from the abstracts to do any further granularization of the study designs. But because we are not able, or I believe that also humans are not able to accurately predict whether a study is prospective or not, if it's not mentioned in the abstract, we are just associating these studies, or we are classifying them as non-RCTs, and then we are looking at these quotes to see whether they mention that a study is prospective or not. The second, I think, very interesting problem is that very often we want to be PICO-specific when doing the extraction. So in this particular review, we are looking at the number of patients or the sample size, but we're not interested in the total population size of the study. But we were interested in the number of patients hospitalized with COVID-19. So here you can see 2 examples from this review that show when it can be tricky. So in this first example, the abstract mentions almost 4,000 hospitalized patients that were tested for COVID, but you can see that only 102 of them had positive test results. So the correct answer in this case is 102. In the second example, we have the cohort of 973 patients, and then 44 patients were excluded from the study. So here, the final result, the 929 patients, this number is not mentioned in the abstract explicitly. This is something that the model needs to calculate, subtracting this second number from the first one. So as you can see, this is not really an easy task for the automation. We spent some time also including these new models, these new large language models to tackle this task, and we are really happy about the results. So comparing the old versus the new approach, given the screening budget of 2,000 references, in the new screening approach, you can see that you can screen 1,312 large studies as predicted by the model, versus just 462 when screening the top 2,000 references, according to the relevance ranking. So we are now doing a side-by-side comparison of these 2 approaches, and we'll be very happy to share the results with you. However, for the next quarter, we are already considering adding these models for the groups to use them in their screening workflows. So thank you very much, and I believe now we have the last 5 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Artur, for the presentation. And yes, we received some questions. First, future-looking question. Based on current AI technology and trends, what is the likelihood of being able to completely autonomize updates to systematic reviews within the decade? Search, screen, extract, analyze, and alter the manuscript. Can we answer?
So I think that given the fact that almost all of these let's say breakthroughs in natural language processing were published last year or the year before, it's really difficult to predict what will happen in a decade. But I think that it's very probable that within a decade we will have this fully automated workflow. I believe that the biggest question really is how good we'll become at really specifying our requirements and our criteria, so these models can truly apply them and produce these reviews. So I think that we'll need really to have very precise protocols for this to happen. But I think that, in terms of the technology, we'll probably be there within 10 years.
Thank you. Another question, how often a living review is updated?
So this is really a question that depends, sorry, the answer depends on the group. In this particular example that I shared, this is the 4th update. So it was updated more or less every 6 months. The updates, if I remember correctly, were more frequent in the beginning, especially as the COVID situation was changing. Now they are less frequent.
Okay, thank you. I have another question in the chat. Is it possible to define my own roles? For example, I want to give the possibility to invite users to project to only some of my staff.
Okay, so Kuba, would you like to answer this one?
Sure, thank you. So it is possible. We can define the action of inviting other people to my team, and then I can just say yes, this is possible. You can generate, you can create your own role. You can define the set of attributes that will help you to do what you want to do in the system. But to make it in the efficient way, the best approach would be to familiarize yourself with the system, to know what is possible, what's not, where you feel that there is some kind of a constraint, and where you want to put a constraint for the users. But yes, the current model allows you to create a new role. Maybe it's not yet possible from the interface level, but as I said, we released this feature recently, and now it is in the stage of testing, and we want to see how users will use it. And I believe that in the future iterations, we will extend it to allow administrator or manager to create their own role with their own set of attributes. We need to remember that every attribute will be strongly tied to a particular functionality in the system, but if they are defined granularly, then it's easy to build the attribute around it.
Thank you, Kuba. And I have the last question in the chat. If I would like to propose a new feature or an amendment, how can I do so? How will you decide whether it will be implemented?
Yeah, so please send it to us, or even better, schedule a meeting with us so we can talk about it. And this roadmap, it was mentioned several times today, but this roadmap is not something that we kind of created out of a thin air, but it's based on the feedback from our users and our clients. So I believe that 80% of what we have on the roadmap is customer driven. 20% is our, let's say, vision of where we want to also push the tool. But we are more than happy to listen about your ideas.
Thank you very much. And I think with this we can finish our webinar today. I have sent the links already in the chat, so do not forget to follow us on Twitter and subscribe to our newsletter to be informed about the new webinars and events. Next month we are preparing a webinar on GradePro, so stay tuned. And thank you to all the presenters, and thank you for all the attendees for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.